Richard Hederian is a columnist and author of Asia's New Battlefield, US, China, and the Struggle for the Western Pacific. He's joining us now from Manila. Thanks very much indeed for being with us. Is this business as usual in the South China Sea, or is China changing its tactics?
Yes and no. I mean, China, since the global financial crisis, which really hit the United States and the West, has stepped up its efforts to dominate adjacent waters. And we saw this surreal reclamation activities and creation of artificial islands beginning in 2013 onwards. But what we have seen in the past 2 months or so, at least, is what many critics see as a brazen act of strategic opportunism. For instance, and what we're seeing also here is what you can call offensive charming. So on one hand, China is engaging in a face mask diplomacy, going around the region, giving PPEs and medical equipments and masks to Indonesia, to Philippines, and different countries who are struggling with this epidemic, which of course originated from China. But at the same time, we see also China in March and increasingly in April has also stepped up its efforts in adjacent waters to dominate those waters. For instance, we see the Chinese sinking a Vietnamese fishing boat, apprehending 2 others, now harassing a Malaysian West Capella drill ship activities, oil exploration activities. We see China further militarizing the artificially created islands like the Mischief Reef and deploying monster Coast Guard ship to the Scarborough Shoal. And all of this, let's be very careful, all of this is happening while neighboring countries, including top generals in the Philippines, have caught the virus and had to withdraw into quarantine. And more importantly, the U.S. Navy and the Pentagon had to put suspension on overseas deployment. And in fact, one of American aircraft carriers, USS Roosevelt, is now completely grounded because of the epidemic outbreak. So this has created a new strategic vacuum that's allowed China to push the envelope in an even more accelerated mode. And some people are saying here in the Philippines, what kind of friend steals from you when you're recovering in the hospital?
Mike Pompeo, as we mentioned, has said that the U.S. strongly opposes what he calls China's bullying. He hopes other nations will hold them to account. In what way do you think he expects other nations to be able to hold China to account?
Well, yeah, in fairness, in diplomatic language, what we see right now is more and more solidarity. So, for instance, the Philippines released a statement. Philippines is, of course, known for having a president who is closer to China than any other major power. But the Philippine Department of Affairs actually released a statement in solidarity with the Vietnamese when a Vietnamese boat was sunk by the Chinese earlier this month. And we saw also the Malaysians, who are generally seen as being friendly and acquiescent towards China. They also stood up, and their new foreign minister and former defense minister, Hashimoddin Hussein, he said very clearly that we'll stand firmly with our claims and interests in the South China Sea. And more importantly, we see that even American allies, other allies like Australia, have been conducting joint naval activities with the United States in the area, and the U.S. is also deploying more and more warships. And by the way, it's not only the South China Sea, we also see more Chinese military intimidation tactics happening in the Taiwan Straits, because Taiwan has also been pushing for more global recognition as it becomes also a major producer of masks and desperately needed medical equipment. And of course, Taiwan has also very successfully dealt with the coronavirus. So China is not only intimidating smaller countries in the South China Sea, but is also intimidating Taiwan, and the U.S. is trying to help all of these countries. It remains to be seen what will U.S. do more militarily. It seems they're going to relocate one aircraft carrier from the Middle East, USS Truman, Harry Truman, to the Pacific, because they're also having a problem with the epidemic outbreak in the USS Roosevelt. So let's see what the U.S. will do in terms of putting muscle to the rhetoric.
Richard Hederian, thanks very much indeed for joining us on Al Jazeera.